to German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who you can just see is standing up there ready to make her part of this historic joint speech today in Strasbourg. Let's listen in to what Merkel has to say.
Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen aus dem Europäischen Parlament, meine Damen und Herren.
She's saying thank you to everyone and welcoming everyone. In November 1989, a French president and a German federal chancellor spoke for the last time in the European Parliament. Francois Mitterrand and Helmut Kohl, just after the fall of the Berlin Wall, met in Strasbourg and took to the floor. Both of them felt what a time of upheaval it was for Europe, and they both showed that they were deeply moved. They both recognized the fact that there were joint responsibilities to be borne, that Germany would grow together, and that would ultimately lead to an integration of Europe. And it is today that with great gratitude that we can think back to those historic moments when we were Europeans in the wake of the first coming together of that part of the continent, stepped up to the mark. And we now have a free Europe and peaceful Europe. That seems to go without saying, but it did take an awful lot of effort back then. There were fears, there was skepticism in the old member states, not least that the number of the member states would be likely to double almost in the European Union. Many people thought that the movement of millions of Europeans would be a threat to their own jobs. New decision-making structures had to be devised. European funds had to be redirected to the benefits of the new member states. And today, we recognize that all of the effort that went into that back then has paid us all back. It's not brought us lower, it has built us up. And it's not contributed to less, but it's given us more freedom. It's not cut down on diversity, it's added to diversity. In brief, it has helped us along the way to more Europe, because we have learned from our history and from our diversity that we must master the situation and the capabilities to put us in a position to take up the responsibility for freedom. Responsibility for freedom is ultimately tolerance, which is a valuable commodity. The old differences between East and West have turned out to be a great moment in history, and it showed that if we demonstrate courage and if we demonstrate the will, we can do it, and that there is absolutely no reason at all to step back and to feel discouraged in these times. In a word, it showed us and shows us what is possible. You have, after that, draw up the Lisbon Treaty and the Fundamental Charter, and we've seen altogether we've been able to pull ourselves through the economic crisis, and we're stronger together than we are separate. And the European state debt crisis is one we acted together. And Francois Hollande referred to the very difficult negotiations. It meant that we were able to work together and we were able to guarantee the unity of the Eurozone. Ladies and gentlemen, the French President, Francois Hollande, and I are able to speak to you today, and we're grateful for this invitation. We're speaking in a time that once again Europe is facing enormous challenges. And I put it to you, and this is a trial of historic measure. There are many people indeed. There are many people taking the arduous and dangerous route into Europe, across the Mediterranean, via Italy, the Aegean, Greece, etc. And people are fleeing terrible civil war, particularly the war in Syria, which has already cost around 250,000 lives already, and 10 million people have had to flee and become refugees. There are refugees from Iraq, refugees from the unstable situation in Libya, and parts of Africa. And they've all had to face the fact that diplomatic negotiations and all the transatlantic arrangements haven't brought about peace in Syria yet. We've not been able to prevent the conflict in Syria. We didn't manage to plug the vacuum in Libya. These are people should have the possibility of living or living without fear. They shouldn't have the fear of living with bombs in their own country. And this is a job for Europe, and ultimately it's a job for the whole world, she says. And this is the message, I think, today. A decisive contribution by Europe to that problem is that required. A fight against war, political, military persecution, the loss of hope, poverty. Germany and France, with that resolve, have helped.
Wir haben die Annexion der Krim erlebt. Wir haben die Destabilisierung der Ostukraine erlebt. Und ich sage ganz offen, wir haben glücklicherweise in Europa gemeinsam gehandelt. Wir haben gemeinsam Sanktionen verhängt und gesagt, das ist eine Verletzung unserer Prinzipien, das werden wir nicht zulassen. Aber jetzt arbeiten wir daran, diesen Konflikt zu lösen.
At work on trying to solve conflict, and we used the Normandy format last Friday. We held talks in Paris, in France, and they give us hope at least that the ceasefire may hold and the elections in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions may be held, referring to the Ukraine conflict, of course, here. This is one of the many conflicts, she says, and I know that our foreign security policy must continue to try and resolve conflicts and to stop the causes for people having to flee. We will have to put much more money forward than we have hitherto, and the decisions required to bring that about need to be made swiftly. All this is going to change Europe once again, just as happened after changes 25 years ago. And of course, with an improvement in our competitiveness, that is an issue we have to get to grips with. The digitization of our society too, sustainability and development, a common energy policy, free trade agreement. And then right now, the strong economic Europe, which exploits the value of the single market, is needed more than ever before. And our economic policy coordination is required more than before. And we need to try and sort out the conceptual errors that we had at the heart of that. And Germany and France will play their part in doing that. German Chancellor Angela Merkel addressing the European Parliament in Strasbourg, if you're just joining us here on Euronews. A great number of refugees is changing the agenda in Europe, she says, and it's going to do so ever more, and increasingly so because it's a matter of our interests in Europe and our place in the world that's being challenged. And we have to try to help stop the flow of migrants, and there's no way around ensuring that addressing the causes of people will flee, but in these months in Europe we're seeing that global events have involved us very closely. And that happens whether we like it or not. We can't shut ourselves off from the world. Never before since the Second World War have so many people been fleeing, more than 60 million. And I think that figure shows quite what the size of the problem is. Nobody easily or voluntarily leaves their place of birth, the place they came from. But we also have to say to these people that they cannot stay here We need to make sure that people who require our protection against war and persecution are in receipt of help. And we need a political process to bring about a sorting out of the problems in Syria with all the international operators and a greater international role in Europe in all of that. Syria's neighbours need to help as well, she says. And there needs to be prospects for the millions of refugees that are here. Europe has made proposals to improve the financial arrangements, and I thank the Parliament for their help with that. Turkey plays a key role. Turkey is our immediate neighbour. It's the starting point for irregular migration. And they've been doing extraordinary things for almost 2 million people, and they need our strong support when it comes to accommodating and helping refugees and in the fight against traffickers. This is political dialogue, which the Commission has started with Turkey, and it's of real importance. Germany is going to provide bilateral support in that, and all of the efforts to form a unity government in Libya is one that Europe supports. The whole of the European Union, when it comes to dealing with these issues, is going to pull together, because we mustn't fall prey to want to act nationally in these moments. We must, to the contrary, act together. It is precisely now that we need more Europe. We need the cohesion and the courage that Europe has always shown in the past when it's really mattered. And Germany and France are standing ready, and we agree with you, President, and the European Commission. It has put forward many important proposals that we must set about implementing. We agree with the President of the European Council, who has worked intensively to help with cooperation, countries of origin. And we agree with the European Parliament in its resolution of the 10th of September, in which they reminded us that it's not possible to deal with the refugee crisis by people or countries going off on their own. And we are thankful to you, the President, you here in Parliament, for making these decisions so swiftly. It's only if we work together that Europe will succeed to bring down the worldwide causes of people having to flee and becoming refugees. We'll be able to fight traffickers, be able to set up, we'll be able to better protect the external borders of the European Union. We'll get no risks to the internal borders, and if we help our neighbours to deal with the issues that are right on our doorstep, then that will help bring that about. It is only together that we will be able to have a return agreement brought about that gives prospects to agreement to people who will once again return home. It's only by having a fair distribution or relocation of refugees around Europe that can we deal with this issue. We have to be frank, the Dublin procedure in its current form is obsolete. In practice, it was well thought through. It was well, but it's faced the challenges of the current challenges on the external borders, and it's not been viable. That's why we need a new approach based on fairness and solidarity. And I welcome the work of the European Commission on that, and I think it's a good thing that Germany and France are of one mind on that. And equally, it will only be possible for us to tackle the huge efforts, integrate refugees, it's only if we do that together that will be possible. We have many people coming here who will be willing to integrate into our societies, and it means that we have to uphold existing situations. People will have to speak the language. We also have a duty to stand by people who are in dire need. We must see them as people, not just an anonymous mass. regardless of whether they have the prospect to remain or not, she just said. And it's exactly for that reason that humanitarian minimum standards must be upheld for accommodation of refugees and the processing of asylum applications. We owe that to ourselves, and we are a community. We are a community of law, and we must orientate ourselves to those values that were established and set down in the European treaties: human dignity, tolerance, the respect of human rights and solidarity. And all of that means that these challenges cannot be borne by one or two member states alone, but by everybody all together. We have to face the fact that even if it's attempting to shut off from all of this, we all know that people will come to harm on our borders, and it will serve nobody's interests. It certainly won't help those affected. They will still try to find ways in order to reach Europe, and it will not serve us in Europe. Shutting ourselves off in the time of the internet will serve nobody's interests. But we will have to face up to this grave problem, because it is our values that bind us together. If we don't bear those values in mind, we will lose them and we'll betray ourselves. It will come down to no more than self-betrayal, she says. If we heed that, then we will withstand this historic test, and we will emerge from this crisis stronger than we entered into it. Then we will manage to express our values globally, and that furthermore will be something that the rest of the world will expect from us. People leave their countries. The reasons for that we're familiar with because of our own European history. It was the case that for many hundreds of years, people were leaving Europe, not trying to get here. And Jean-Claude Juncker said in his State of Union address, he said that in such an impressive manner. Europe is now a place where many people from throughout the world try to come to achieve their hopes and escape their fears. It is a place that gives rise to people's dreams. And many people in Eastern Europe were dreaming of a free and a unified Germany all those years ago. And we have to be responsible when we think about the power of attraction of Europe. And that means we have to take greater care of those who are currently in dire need in our neighbouring countries. We have responsibilities both here and abroad. And if we face up to those, we will stand the test, and we will come out of it well. And we will also see that the opportunities here are greater than the risks. We'll have to do an awful lot more to encourage people to understand the values of Europe. We will now show that we can fight together to fight for the same objectives. And I would like to invite all of you here to join with us in doing that work of convincing us of the value of this. Every single member in this House will play an important role back in your home countries, in your own constituencies. In the full face of European voters. Back in 1989, Helmut Kohl in the European Parliament said, but with cleverness and with moderation and flexibility, we will achieve. Thank you very much. So German Chancellor Angela Merkel addressing the plenary session of the European Parliament in Strasbourg there.